You're good to go.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is our sort of our final installment in our kind of three-part series that we've been doing around advocacy. I know you all had a Hill Day in the state of Ohio not too long ago. Sounds like it went really well. Hopefully, a bunch of you participated in that. And so for this final bit, I just wanted to spend a little time talking about what it looks like to build relationships with some of the folks that, if you participated in Hill Day, you know, some of the lawmakers and the staff that maybe you met during Hill Day. If you didn't participate, it's still, you know, I think really helpful information for kind of starting the process of building relationships. It's one of the things that I try to emphasize a lot with advocacy is that you know, I think often it's thought about as sort of a one-off thing, and I know I've said this in our first two sessions that really impactful advocacy is about establishing an ongoing conversation with folks. Yes, you want to do an initial outreach to kind of introduce yourself, introduce your organization, but the real influence comes from continuing that dialogue, you know, continuing to share information, continuing to have conversations. Because over time, what that does then is position you and position AIA Cincinnati as reliable sources of information and also as subject matter experts, so that, you know, when a lawmaker is working on a particular policy area that's related to the conversations you've been having with him or her, you then become one of the first people they pick up the phone and call to say, hey, I'm working on this. This is sort of the direction we're thinking about going. What do you think? Do you think it's going to work? And being that phone call, that's where you can start to really really have an impact on shaping policy around the issues that you all are focused on and working on. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what it looks like to build those kinds of relationships. And I always encourage people to use Hill meetings as a catalyst for reaching out to state lawmakers. You know, for example, I was in. I'm embarrassed to ask. Is it is Columbus, right? Is where the okay? That's what I thought, but then I was maybe not sure. You know, I was in Columbus as part of AIA Ohio's Hill Day, you know, advocating for this. I'd like to schedule time, you know, to, you know, have a follow-up call or something like that. But those things can be, those initial meetings can be sort of the jumping off point for deeper conversations. And so I feel like there are essentially four keys to effective relationship building. And you can see them listed out here, and I'll talk a little bit about each one, and then try to leave enough time at the end to have some questions and to have a little more kind of, you know, back and forth dialogue and things like that. So key number one for effective relationship building is to be informative. If you're reaching back out after you've had an initial meeting with a lawmaker or a staff person, especially if you've got a question that you didn't know the answer to in the meeting, reach out once you have that answer and share it with the person that you met with. It's one of the things that I encourage people not to stress about when they when they have a meeting, that if you don't have answers to all the questions, it's okay. Because every question you can't answer is an opportunity for follow-up. And having that follow-up is how you start to build that relationship. If you have additional data around a particular issue, that's also great information to share. If there's a relevant news story, things like that. And the key, again, is to show that you're a reliable source of information, that you are someone who isn't just going to reach out to ask for something or because you have a request, but because you want to help inform the lawmaker and the staff person around a particular issue. With that in mind, always make sure that the information you share is accurate. Be sure you do your due diligence around anything that you want to share, and just make sure that that the information is accurate in order for it to, you know, obviously be useful. Step number 2, I always encourage people to be brief. Less is more. The folks that you're reaching out to are incredibly busy, and especially at the state level. If a legislator has staff, it's 1 or 2 people at the most, and they're dealing essentially with the same type of policy portfolio that that lawmakers in Congress are dealing with, but with a fraction of the staff. So there's just a lot, which again can work in your favor if you can position yourself as a reliable source of information. So when you reach out, be brief. Make sure that that any outreach is worth their time. For example, if you've met in person already and you've scheduled another in-person meeting, if at all possible, I always encourage folks to bring somebody else who's also a constituent, especially if you know somebody who potentially has an interest in also, has an interest in advocacy, has an interest in building relationships, but is really nervous about reaching out and doing it on their own. And so it's a great way to, to expand your area of influence by, kind of bringing people along. And especially if you know somebody who's not only a constituent, but is also a subject matter expert in the particular policy area that you're going to be talking about. That introduction can be really useful, and can earn you a couple of gold stars with either the lawmaker or the staff person that you're meeting with. And of course, always be respectful. Every time I say this, it sounds like a no-brainer, but I also have known enough folks who work in legislative offices to know that this is as basic of a thing as it isn't something that that's followed. The folks that work, whether it's the lawmaker or the staff person, folks who work in that environment hear from a lot of people who are not happy, and who are not respectful in the way that they express their unhappiness or their frustration. So if you can be someone who, even if you disagree, even if they voted in a way that you don't like, or you're trying to get them to support a policy that they just won't, even if you disagree over whatever the topic is, if you can still have a respectful conversation. And it doesn't mean that you don't express your disappointment. I've certainly had plenty of conversations with lawmakers and their staff where I've said, I was really hoping that we that we had shared enough information to kind of get you guys on our side. I was pretty disappointed, in either the memo I read or the vote that you took or whatever it might be. But I'm hoping that we can kind of continue to talk, and maybe I can help you, maybe, we can, find some things that we can work on together. So you certainly don't have to go in to a meeting and not express disappointment. It's just a matter of how you do it. And if it's a pleasant conversation, even if you guys disagree, that's going to stick with them, because again, like I said, they get yelled at a lot. They hear from a lot of people that are mad and frustrated, and are pretty awful in the way that they express that frustration. And so if you can go in with just a kinder disposition, that will stick with them, and it'll help in building those relationships. And then the fourth thing that I always encourage is to be consistent. And it doesn't mean that you have to have a scheduled time that you send an email or send a phone call or reach out to people. It just means to be consistently reaching out. It might be once a month. It might be a couple times a month. It might be at the beginning of a legislative session and again at the end. It doesn't have to be, like I said, it doesn't have to be a scheduled thing. But just make sure that you're in front of those folks enough so that when a particular policy area comes up, you are top of mind. And again, that sort of goes back to what I said before about being a source of information, reaching out with news stories and data, or, updates on a particular, if you've gone to them and asked them to co-sponsor a bill, for example, and one of their colleagues has signed on to that particular bill, that's also really helpful information to share and say, I just wanted to make sure you knew that, Senator so-and-so has signed on to this, and I know you two work together a lot. And I wanted you to know that this bill has his or her support. So that kind of thing. And again, just sort of being consistent in that outreach goes a long way, because again, not to sound like a broken record, but my goal and what I hope your goal will be in all of this is to position yourselves so that your policymakers know you're someone they can go to with questions, that you aren't someone who just shows up and is asking for something and saying, hey, I want you to do this for me, but who's going in with more of a collaborative sort of disposition. I want to work with you on this. Let me share the information that I know. Here's somebody else I know who's a subject matter expert. I wanted to be sure that you guys had a chance to talk about this particular area. Because again, when you're the person they pick up the phone and call when they have a question about that policy area, that's when you start really having influence, and it can go a long way towards shaping policy. And now, of course, it doesn't mean that things are always guaranteed to go your way or to go the way that you would like them to, but it does at least put you in a better position to influence those things. I also always encourage folks to stick with your lawmakers. This isn't on the list, but since I went through those faster than I thought I would, I want to add that too. Focus your time and energy on the people who represent you, who represent your district. You can reach out to senators and representatives who are in other districts, but the message is just not going to carry the same weight. And by sticking to the folks who represent your district, it also makes sure that the limited time I know you all have is concentrated in a way that can be the most effective. Now, if you know somebody who's a constituent for another area, then by all means, you can go with them to a meeting. And again, especially if it's somebody who is who wants to participate, but's nervous about, doing it on their own, then certainly go with them. But to the degree that you're able, just, like, stick with your folks, I guess, because they're the ones you're going to have the most influence over. And knowing what I do about architects and your workload, I also know that your time is incredibly limited. And so focusing on the people that represent your districts just ensures that that you have the best chance possible to really be influential. And those are, I know that was really fast. Those are all of my slides. I guess we have a good, I think, 10 or 15 minutes now for discussion and questions. And I want to be sure to answer any, or even to just have a broader conversation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
And we have a pretty small group, so if you have questions, feel free to just unmute and ask, or if you would rather not unmute and ask, you can.
Yeah, or if you have examples, I'd be really curious if folks have, if you have had success in building relationships with lawmakers or their staff, or even folks who work in regulatory bodies. Those are also really beneficial relationships to have. The folks who do all the rulemaking and all of that also have a strong impact on issues that affect architecture. And so those are also, I think, really important relationships to build.
Stephanie, one question I had for you, in the city of Cincinnati, our city council members have 2-year terms. So there can be a good bit of turnover. And while I realize it's important to make relationships with those council people, is it maybe more important to make relationships with their staff? Like, are those the people who might be like career people who would move to another like council member's office at some point? Like, or is that
Yeah.
not kind of how things work?
No, I think it's a great idea. I think especially, so are they all up for reelection at the same time?
Yes, they are.
What a
Uh,
mess. So you
last
could
year,
potentially have a bunch of people coming in with no,
our
um,
council this year is all brand new people except for one.
wow.
And they're all up for reelection next year. When the election happened last year, I believe there were originally 64 people running for
Oh my
council,
gosh.
and it
And
was down
how many seats? How many council seats?
7 or
Oh
9.
my God. That's insane. That's tough to keep track of.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it is very beneficial to build relationships with staff for that reason, because they are more likely to stay. I mean, here in Falls Church City, we have a city council of, I think also 6 or 7. And their re-elections are staggered, which is a little bit better, but it's still possible that they'll be there for a couple of years and then be gone. And so we have made a point of getting to know the staff and the city clerks and folks like that who are going to be there even if the city council members turn over, and then they can help in the building relationships with new council members who come in. So yeah, I think both are very valuable. Yeah.
thank you.
And also I would say other boards and commissions. It's one of the things, I serve on the Urban Forestry Commission here in Falls Church. And one of the things that we do on a fairly consistent basis is reach out and have some pretty in-depth conversations with commission members on other commissions, the Planning Commission and things like that. Because again, those are folks who are likely to be here longer than some of the city council, than some of the city councilors, and who, kind of the boards and commissions together can sort of help bring counselors then up to speed when a new person comes in, because the folks on the planning commission then end up having the institutional knowledge that a city councilor needs when they're coming in. And so getting to know them can also be another really good way to build some effective relationships, not only with those boards and commissions, but then sort of tangentially with members of city council too when they're new.
Anybody else have any questions?
Any burning questions?
Comments, concerns?
Stories? Any great stories from anyone who participated in Hill Day? I always love hearing those stories. Those are fun.
Mm-hmm.
Wait.
This is Chris. I'm on the phone calling my car. Apologize. Good to see you guys.
Right. Hey, Chris.
Hey, quick thing. So a couple of us did have a chance to go up to Columbus a few weeks back, as you mentioned, for Legislative Day.
Yeah.
Which was good. We had a chance to talk to a couple local representatives, and one of which we've been trying to set up a meeting with for a little while, because we had met with them several months ago. A good conversation. Again, they're saying, I think it was a newer staff person for this particular representative, and it said, hey, follow up with an email, like we'll see about getting a meeting set up when we're back in town in another week or two. So we did that, followed up, had a couple different correspondences, still trying to kind of get that set. Is there you talk about being respectful, and is there like an appropriate amount of time to follow back up with folks? Is it like, on one hand, you don't want to be like a nuisance, but on the other hand, it's like, just trying to see where things are. And like you said, they're busy. So, and like I said, some people it seems like you get in touch with quicker, and some people not as much. So just curious to kind of hear your, kind of recommendations for if we're just not getting responses from a particular staff or representative, what approach might be.
Yeah, I mean, when I typically, what I recommend is after the initial conversation, give it a couple weeks and then follow up. And if you're not hearing back, I would recommend following up once a week, and it can be really quick. Hey, just wanted to ping you again. I know we were trying to talk about this thing, because again, state lawmakers just have so much on their plate, and their staff do too. The other thing that can help is to ask if it makes sense to reach out to somebody else, because it's possible that you met with a staff person who isn't responsible for that particular policy area. And so if you're not getting a response, it's one of the things that I will do is say, hey, I've reached out a couple times, not gotten a response. If there's someone else I should be reaching out to, please let me know, because I don't want to fill your inbox with stuff that's not relevant. That kind of a thing. But if you're not hearing back, I would follow up once a week, and maybe even try a phone call. If they're not responding via email, then I generally try to reach someone via email 2 or 3 times. If I don't get a response, I'll try to get them on the phone, which usually works. It doesn't always, but sometimes a phone call is more effective. But I think trying to follow up once a week is a reasonable time frame, especially because they have so many things coming at them that it's entirely possible that they intend to follow up, and then they just forget, or it kind of gets to the bottom of the list because other things get added. And so I think, making sure again that they remember that you're here, and have things that you want to talk about and work on is good, because they just have a lot coming at them. And so I think a once a week reminder that you're here and that you want to talk, I think is reasonable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just, before everyone else has questions, I need to jump off here in a minute, but I know we'll follow back up, Stephanie, after. I really appreciate, I think the series have been super informative, and even I think for people who maybe have been involved longer. So just really appreciate you taking the time and putting these, quick little half-hour presentations together. Like I said, I think they've been really helpful, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of take these and build off of it a little bit more. So
yeah,
just
happy to
say that before I had to jump off.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's been really fun, and the 30-minute format is new, so that's been kind of fun to try too. Does anybody else have questions, or even examples of successful relationship building that you'd like to share? Because I know those examples, those stories can be really beneficial too. Everybody's so quiet.
It's like crickets.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, so that local advocacy working group here in Cincinnati, and I put a link in the chat for our new advocacy resource page. They try to send communication to all of the leaders in our 9 counties, quarterly or trimesterly, depending on topics. And I do think that is helping. We've had now, somebody from the city reached out about a particular ordinance, and we had somebody from the county contact us about when they were working on the model zoning for the county. And I think that the intention is to just be informative and to not ask for anything, but the hope is to get in front of folks. The examples, the letters we sent from 2022 are on the website, as well as with some of the backup materials, because we rely a lot on what we're getting from National on specific things, and National did some really nice summaries of the infrastructure bill and the Department of Energy grant program. So those materials are also kind of in the row with the letter. So it's first quarter letter, second quarter letter, third quarter letter, and then whatever the backup materials are.
That's great.
Because it occurred to us at the end of last year that we should be sharing those with the members so that they know what is going out as well. So hopefully the page will help get that information out there.
Well, and those can also be a really good catalyst for members reaching out then to their own, folks, to just say, hey, I know AIA Cincinnati sent this letter out to you. I just wanted to reach out as a constituent and make sure that you saw it. And, whatever the follow-up is. Would love to have a further conversation, or, you know, whatever it might be. I mean, those can be a really good impetus for reaching out to folks, and continuing that conversation.
It was interesting when, I don't remember now which one it was, but I had two firms reached out to me because they had a client who came in with a copy of the letter that we sent. And said, I want more information about this.
Wow.
So they contacted me, and then I sent them the background information. The
That's
national
nice.
and said, you should contact National if you have more questions about this. So
That's awesome. I love it when that happens. Yeah.
it's kind of fun. Anybody else have anything? We've got like 4 more minutes. You can ask Stephanie, the national policy advocacy expert stuff. Doug, you just unmuted. I'm going to call on you.
Yeah, Stephanie, the reason I hadn't jumped in is I've got a lousy cold and I may just break into a coughing fit.
Oh,
Anyway,
I'm sorry to hear that. Doug.
AIA asked me to be a member of the Age-Friendly Cincinnati Initiative committee, and so I've been involved with that. I'm a Design for Aging senior center design specialist in my profession.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
So being part of that committee has introduced me to a whole lot of people within the community that are involved with housing, involved with policy, involved with social, equity, and just on and on and on. But what that has done is it's kind of backdoored us into the commissioner's offices. And so we've gotten to know the staff, and it's been more of a mutual educational process. We want to know more about what they're doing. They want to know more about what we're doing. But to take it from a individual level to an organizational level gives you an opportunity for informal or not so direct conversation and contact with those people and other people that work for the city of Cincinnati, so that when other issues can come up, I've got a network of people now that I feel that I can reach out to and say, who do you think is the most important person that we should contact regarding this? And then you can always drop somebody else's name. So-and-so from the department of such and such said you would be the right person to talk to about this. And I just feel that in addition to what you've been talking about, the idea of having other opportunities to just be in front of that person, or to be on a Zoom call or whatever, on a basis where, like you said, you're not asking specifically for something. You're just letting them see that you have an interest or that you have a knowledge base, and always remind them, don't ever hesitate to contact us or me or whoever it is to say if you've ever got any questions about that. So, and something we've talked about with the advocacy group here as well, as to try to let them understand that individually or us as an organization, as the AIA, can be a tremendous resource of, I've got a question, I think it's stupid, but maybe it's not, because you may have a good answer about this. And no, that's not a stupid question. That's a great question, because we hear it all the time, and we understand people don't understand those types of things. So I think, again, just kind of having that impromptu opportunity time and time again, where you're not always going and saying, I know I'm bothering you, but, to just develop a relationship with these people on a different level.
Yeah. That's a great example. I really like that. I like, getting involved with a group like that then sort of allows you to branch out and get to know other folks. And, and it made me think too, Doug, that one of the things that, I think can be really helpful for elected officials and even, commission members is for architects to share information about successful projects that they've worked on around a particular area. And so, for example, if there are members of the city council that have made it clear that senior housing is something that's really important to them, they'd be really good people to reach out to and just talk to them about, here's one of the things that we're doing, and here's a project that we're working on that is going to address some of the things that you're concerned about. And if there are ways that I can help you with this issue, because I know it's important, just know that I'm here and I'm happy to answer questions.
One of the things that we've done with the age-friendly community advocacy group is we've got to know what other cities have been doing toward their age friendliness. And so you get to know other examples and other people in other communities. And then again, you can throw that community's name or that, a person in one of those communities, if a councilman is interested in more information, oh, go talk to so-and-so from Portland and I'll get you their contact information. And so you can expand that network of knowledge.
Yeah.
And again, not always feel like you're bugging them or that they might feel like you're bugging them for eventually coming in and dropping the bomb and saying, we need money, and
Right.
that's
Right.
not the case at all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. You're right. Helping them connect with other people who either have an interest in that same area or who have, some subject matter expertise around that area, is another really good way to set yourself up as a valuable resource for again, lawmakers and people who sit on commissions and things like that. Yeah, that's a really good. I'm going to add that actually as an example to my presentations, because those connection points, like if you're somebody who can introduce a council member or someone like that to other people who can help, that also makes you a really valuable resource. And that's not an example that I often use when I'm talking about this, but I'm going to start because it's a really good example, and it's a really good way to to bring information and not be the person who just shows up asking for things. So thanks for sharing that, Doug. You gave me a little extra content for my presentations going forward.
All right, well, we are now at 12:30. The series has been recorded. It's on the two that we've already done are on the website. As soon as I get the stuff for this one, I'll put that up. And then Stephanie's also been kind enough to share the presentations. And so those are also linked from that advocacy page on our website. So if you missed the other two, feel free to check out those recordings. They're also 30 minutes. And but this has been great. Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And
yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, everybody have a great rest of your Wednesday. And if you're in Cincinnati, don't forget opening days tomorrow.
Oh boy.
Either avoid or in town.
I hope it goes well.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.